This is Brenda again, and we're in the second half of making my air dry clay pins. These are the little tiny figurines that I've just cut out, and these have dried at least 24 hours. And now I'm getting ready to paint them. You can tell that this one is already dry. This one is the one we worked on earlier today, and it's still drying. And you just barely see that this one here is more of a darker color. The pure white shows that it is completely dry. And I've let it dry overnight, and I continually came in throughout yesterday, not last night, but throughout the day, and I would turn them so that they were drying slowly, and that way they don't warp, because if you try to hurry up and dry these, then it is going to probably warp or crack. And by turning them, I would gently just turn them over and let them sit for another couple hours. And I did that for all of those yesterday and last night before I went to bed. So now I'm using acrylic with water, and I have all my brushes out. I have quite a collection after the years. Some of these brushes I've had for years and years. And I'm going to want to use really small fine tips for the details on these. I usually like to get a couple of fine tips. And then these are this is my little teeny one. I don't know, maybe it's got 10 hairs in there. But anyway, those are for like the eyes and stuff. I'm going to do a whimsical painting on this little giraffe. And I have white, which is going to be the background. And then I'm going to make him with blue dots, just for fun. So I would want to start with the white as the background. And you don't have to do the back of these. Sometimes I do, just to kind of reinforce it. I definitely will put a clear lacquer over these, but they come in stages. You have to do it in stages, so I'm not going to do the back right now. I would paint the whole front, and of all of these that I have, I'm going to let them sit overnight, and then I will paint the backs. Sometimes I've tried to rush it, and then you end up getting smudges, and so it's better to just do it more slowly. My painting technique is just make sure that it's all covered and you're not leaving spots, because when paint, especially acrylic, dries, it's going to be a little bit darker than what you see when it dries. And I like to get it down into the little details. I don't know if you can see on there, but I have already sketched out where the little spots will be and his little eye. I don't want to fill that up, but I do want to fill in the cracks so there's no spots that are going to be left. I also will have more than one that I'm working on, because this way, like, I want to do the whites, the blue spots here pretty soon, but you can't put that on until the white dries. Thankfully, acrylic, they do dry really fast. That's why it's kind of my medium of choice, because I don't like to have to wait. I usually try to handle it where I haven't painted yet, but eventually you're going to have to put it down and then do the rest of it. This little giraffe I actually made on the top of his head. They have those two little prongs that stick up. You can just barely see I made just two little dots up there to insinuate the little prawns. It's only so much you can do with the really small, tiny detail. But that's what I love doing. When I was younger, I used to be able to do down to a 6mm square earring post and do a complete little scene with a mountain and a little river and the sky and everything. I can't do him that small anymore, even with my glasses on. So see, he's drying now, so I'm going to go ahead and go and do the white on one of my other pieces. This is how I don't waste any time and I can get more done. My little fox, this is the one with the little, this fox, he's a little Native American fox, and he has a little feather sticking out of a little headband that he's wearing. So this little part of his cheeks is going to be white part on him. And he's going to be an orange color, which I'll have to mix that up. I may need some black too. We'll just do this part right now. Get the white done on some of these. This one here is just a plain little fox. The nice thing about painting is not only it's soothing for you to do, and it's good for your hands to be doing little detail work, which calms the nerves and helps people with anxiety or depression. But the painting makes you feel like you've accomplished something when you sit and do these little projects, and even if they're not for you or you're not selling them, you could give them away. Take them to a senior center or something. This little pin idea is really good for that. Kids love doing this. You can see where I've painted that part. This now is dry enough already that I can do the blue spots. I've picked this blue. It's a folk art blue by Plaid. Just really a pretty blue. I like the antique kind of vintage look to it. Yep. I think I'm gonna get a smaller brush here. When I set down a brush, I always rinse it out first, and then I can lay it down. I don't like leaving the little brushes in the jar, because then you bend your paintbrush end, and you need those ends to be exact. Brushes are expensive. You don't want to have to be buying more all the time. Now I'll just paint these little dots. You can see how I put my thumb, I mean my little finger in here. What I'm doing by doing it is I'm steadying my hand. I'm 70 years old, so I have to steady my hand to make sure that I'm not shaking. You just want to go slow, get a good coat on there. Art can really be done by anyone. However, I did grow up in a very creative family. My mother is an artist. She does portraitures, and she worked in pastels and oils. And my dad, there wasn't anything that he couldn't build. He'd dream up an idea and he would build whatever he wanted, from our first homes, cabins in Alaska, to towards the middle of his life, he was designing great big steel tenders that are for fishing boats out of Alaska, which most of those are still running. I think there maybe was one that isn't, but he made those along the Columbia River in Oregon and sold them to a fishing company in Alaska. It would take about a year to make, and he didn't even have any great big shop or anything. But he also designed one of the first tundra machines with wheels. It was on a track that would go through tundra in Alaska, and that was made under a contractor, so it's not under his name, but he designed and made that. So my whole family is geared towards creativity and coming up with our own ideas and making things. You can see how that's turning out so far. Try to aim this so you get a good light. There, you can see it. Giraffes do have kind of a little black mane right along their neck. I don't know if I'll put that on here, but I should paint his little tail. And I could paint inside his ear. And if you're doing this, like what I'm doing here, make sure some of the areas, you'll see that I went over the side so it looks more real. I didn't just do it on the front, I went over the side so that this looks like it's more rounded. One thing with paint is that you have to know just how much consistency, and that's just going to take you a while to learn that. That means you don't want it too dry in the paint, and you don't want it too wet. Too wet and it's going to run, too dry and it's going to streak. And you'll learn that just by doing. You're just going to have to be involved and do it enough that you learn what that consistency is going to be for what you need it to do. Again, I'm going over the sides so it looks more natural. There, we'll let that dry for a little bit, and I think I'll take this blue and let's do a fox eye with blue. So we've already got it loaded on here. And we'll come back in with a little spot of black afterwards, but right now we're going to paint. We'll go ahead and do this one too. The fox's eyes, blue inside. And then I'll come back and put a black on one side of that. And then this one here, I did his eyes. I see a close-up of this again. Okay, we're going to need just a little bit of black. These are these craft acrylic paints. And you just need to remember, if you have yours around, you need to shake them up. Otherwise you get some of the oil comes out first. And you want that oil, or whatever it is, I think it keeps the consistency just right. You want that to be inside there for keeping your paint nice. Again, about the consistency, you can see that I've dropped it there, but I want this to be a little wetter because I need control if I'm going to do this little tiny eye drop. I put that down in the corner of his eye. He's going to be looking to the right. So I do it on the same on the other eye. So now it looks like he's looking over to the corner. It's cute. Now, inside of the fox ear, I think I'm going to make his inside of the ear black. And here's a little trick for you to do. Well, you can notice his headband is going to have a lot of detail. In order for that detail to show up, I'm going to make almost a watercolor consistency, now meaning a lot of water with some of my black here. I'm first going to go ahead and paint that in with a lot of this water. Get this one here. And then I'm going to immediately wipe that off. By wiping it off, just on the top part, it will stay black down in the cracks. Now it's showing black, it's down in the cracks, but it's enough of the black off for the rest of the area. I can still paint that. I'll finish up with this other ear that need to be painted on the inside. And the eye on this one. Okay, so I'll show you both here. These two, how they're coming. I now need an orange, and I don't have the color orange that I want. So I've picked up a couple of reds. I'm going to try this one. It's almost an orangey. It's too bright. I'm going to try it and then add some yellow. If I added white, I would only get pink, which I do need a little pink too, but I'm not sure which one I want. I think I want this. Might use that orangey color. try both here. What I'm talking about is I didn't know whether I should use this bright yellow or maybe this golden mustard yellow. This one might be the better choice, but I'll put a little bit of both and try it. This one seems to have a little problem coming out. I may have to just get some of it out. It's getting old, I guess. I'd have to get a new jar of it. Yeah, not really happy with that color. Let's try this one. Yeah, that might do. Surprise, surprise. This color didn't work out. It's too dark. You can kind of see the orange that I like is right there. So let's try some of this orange. Do this one first. Again, I'm bracing my hand here by putting the hand over here so I can get a steady stroke. I was debating on whether the nose should be pink or black. Excuse me. I'm deciding that it's going to have to be black to bring out the eyes and the details. Ears. And I see that this orange is such a light color, it's going to need probably 2 coats. Plus, wherever that dark black was, yeah, black is hard to go over. My daughter once painted her bedroom walls black. Takes a lot of paint to go over black. But it can be done. You just have to let it dry good. The air dried clay, you can use watercolor with it too, because it will kind of seep in. I have not experimented with the watercolor as much, but I think people that really like a muted color palette will like the watercolor effect. You can get some really interesting blends with your first coat too with a watercolor effect. You can't with your second coat as much because it's not going to be soaking in or running down cracks. I only use that more liquefied when I want to go down in the cracks. But even on the white, I can see that orange is going to need another coat. When that's drying, I'm going to go ahead and do the little nose. If you ever get a chance to see some of my designs on fabric, I'd love to have you go and check them out. They're on Spoonflower. Just look for Salzanos on Spoonflower. I may even have a link at the bottom of this video. And I'm on Instagram, again under Salzanos. There you'll see a lot of other little tips, and any of the latest things that I'm working on will be on my Instagram account. That's also under Salzanos. This little fox has a little bit of a smile. Some more orange. If you mix up too much paint, the acrylics is really nice because you can just, I could put like a little bit of water down in the bottom of this. It's just an old, you get pot pies in these, so I save them for palettes. You can put a little couple drops of water and cover it with cellophane, and it'll stay wet a long time, which is really nice. Then you can go away, take a break, come back. A little tiny piece by the nose there I didn't have. Missed a spot. I'll show you how dark the colors get when they dry. Might be able to show you here. Holding this one is the dry one, and this is the wet one, and you can see how much darker it gets. And dry. We'll do this and some more. Putting on a second coat for both of them of the orange. Haven't gotten to the feather. Not sure what color I should make that yet. Okay. I think while the foxes are drying a little bit, I'll add something onto my little bear pin. Since I want to use this blue that I've already got mixed up. Well, that came straight out of the tube. I'm giving blue shorts. If you want to see the other pins that I recently made with the gray clay that I was speaking about on my last video, I do have pictures of those on my Instagram account. I think what makes some of these little things that you create interesting too is to try to put little things, you know, like the feather on this one fox, his little headband, or painting them a different color, like the little giraffe is blue and white instead of just yellow and white. Doing something that's different for fun. so that people will not just see the same things all the time. The little bear's going to have little black eyes. You don't have to poke a little hole for their eyes. You could, if you didn't want a hole there, you can just paint their eyes on. Little bear. Should I make him a little gold bear or should he be a brown bear? I'll make him a brown bear. It sounds really old. What if anything's going to come out? Yep, it's still alive. I'll make him kind of a reddish brown orange. I'll add some red to my brown. I wonder what it would look like with maybe some orange to it too. Not sure I like that color. Maybe I'll add more of this orange to it. That's not bad. See, I'm experimenting with the colors. He's a little brown bear. I didn't want it so dark that you can't see the black. I want his black eyes and his little ears and everything to stand out. I have a good bear story. I have a friend in Alaska, and she's probably only 5 foot tall. She lived on Kodiak Island. When she was young, was married and had a little boy. They were living in a cabin. Kodiak is, especially back then, was not many people at all. And Kodiak is known for some of the biggest grizzlies. And one day when her husband was gone, not just one, I think she said there was 2 of them, they tried to get into her cabin. Bears are strong. They can go through just about anything. Thankfully, most cabins are built super strong. But she knew how to shoot. And she knew that she couldn't let them get through there. I mean, her and the baby, her life and her baby's was at risk. And so she had to go on the attack. And she did shoot one of them. And I remember her giving me one of the claws. It was a huge bear. They probably could have just walked right through that door if she hadn't shot it. And I can't remember the story exactly, but if there was 2 bears, I think the other one ran off. But they didn't let the meat go to waste. You can use lots of things from a bear. I don't know if her husband ate bear. My family never ate bear, but some people up in the wilds of Alaska did to survive. And then there was this story that my dad had told me when we lived in the homestead out there. I was just little. 1st grade, I think. Yeah, 1st grade. My mom had to teach me because there was no school. And there was a known grizzly. Oops, painted on his shirt. I could fix that. See, I painted where the shirt was going to go, but I can go, thankfully with acrylic, I can go right over it. There was one grizzly known among all the old timers up there. And he lived for a long time. He'd gotten in a lot of scraps with the locals there. People had said they'd shot him, and he just kept going. And when somebody finally did kill that bear, he had something like 20, well, that's what the tale goes, 20 small bullets in his skull that never penetrated. His skull was so thick. I think if you look it up at the record, I think it's on, you can actually look it up, but the record size grizzly ever shot, and he was older when he finally did get shot and killed, but he'd had lots of people shoot him, and when they tried shooting him in the head, that was the worst area because their skulls are really thick. So there's like, I don't know, the throat or something like that where you have to try to shoot if they're attacking you. But that's like amazing. My family and my dad especially, because he did a lot of tracking. He also flew in and fixed airplanes up there. And then would fly them back out. They have lots of bear stories. Near misses. The grizzly is one who will track you. You think you're tracking something, and the bear will come up from behind because they go around, go downwind, and then come up behind you. They're not one to mess with. They're not. But this bear is a nice bear. This is my friendly bear. Maybe he's Smokey the bear. I think I'll go ahead and make his buttons. Should I make them blue buttons or black buttons? He's already black on his eyes and everything. I think I'll do black buttons. I don't know if you can see it on the screen, but this is what I mean by that the black, when it's really watered, will travel in a crack. So if you look really closely, you'll see where it traveled up his collar just a little bit, which is nice. It stayed in the track, so it just emphasizes it there. But it wasn't planned. I might be able to do it again, though, with a drop of water. Yep. Clear on down. Do it on this side, too. Yeah. And his little shirt. I could just do a really light blue on his shirt. That way it would match. One thing you want to be really careful about when you're painting is if you're, like I'm painting around where there's still some wet, the buttons are still wet, the little crack there is still wet. You do not want to let the paint touch each other at that point. Otherwise, they just merge together really quickly. Now you can paint right next to the line when it's dry. It's just when when you're painting wet and you've got wet next to where you're painting, do not let the two touch. Or you're going to have to just let it sit, wait till it all dry, and then paint over it, because it just like all of a sudden catches and takes off on the run all by itself and messes up all your colors. That little spot that I painted brown easily was covered up. He looks like he needs a smile too, doesn't he? I need my really, really small brush to do that. Make a thin line. I turn, when I dip my brush, I can show you another little tip. When I dip it in water and I dip it in here and I'm making that consistency I was talking about, but then I twirl it to the right or to the left, doesn't matter. The reason I do that is that it gives you a fine point. You need that little tiny fine point if you're going to draw something like this. That made him look happy. I think he needs a little, maybe a little blue in his eye or a little white. I'll try the blue first. Just on one side. That turned out good. Sometimes you get happy little mistakes. The brush went down and it picked up just enough black in there to make it like it's an actual eyes. See if I can hold it steady enough for you to see it here. Here we go. You see? There's that blurry, can't tell. Anyway, I know that we're on 49 minutes, so we're probably going to have to wrap this up. I am going to add a little highlight. Where the nose is, you can come and add just a little. Add little touch. You can do that. Adds a little character. And maybe quickly I can do his little feather. I'll do it dark blue first, and then I'll put some light blue over it. I keep a little cloth over here. It's a napkin to get the color. I'll rinse my brush and I roll it over here to get the color out of the between colors so that you're not mushing up colors. Sometimes it's inevitable, but oops, I just got the wrong color. Because it picked up a little bit of the blue there, so. I'm coloring the headband now. I'm blowing on that feather because I know I'm running out of time. I didn't want this video to be too long, and already we're almost up to an hour. I'm going to do I'm blotting some of the color off of my brush as I don't want any moisture. I want more of a dry color now. And I'm going to do just kind of like, you can do this with your finger too. Fingers work really good. You just want to touch the high areas. You can see how he's looking. I want to get just a touch of gold on that feather. This is, again, Martha Stewart metallic gold. Don't need very much. I'm going to do this. I'm going to use my finger. I love this look. Doing it just on the edge of his ears too. See the gold on the edges of the feather and on his ears. There. I guess that's about gonna do it for today. That's all we have time for. 1 hour of painting went by fast. And I'll finish these up by letting them dry after I'm giving them a couple coats, and then I'll put a clear sealer over it. I use Mod Podge. It's great. But there are spray ones you can use too. You'll want to test them. Make sure they don't make your paint run. Thank you for spending an hour with me today. I hope maybe this is something in here in this video that you learned a new tip, or maybe are inspired to make your own. I especially hope you get inspired to make your own things. It's a lot of fun, and it's very therapeutic. It's very calming, and it's something to do with the family. Again, thank you, and have a great week.